This is The Legend of Zelda, one of the most iconic, influential, and of course legendary games in history, which would go on to launch a series of such consistently high quality that it contains multiple entries which you could reasonably include in the conversation for greatest game ever made. This is a Tiger LCD handheld representation of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, a very simple LCD screen that operates basically like a calculator but with somehow even less buttons. Side note, this is still better than the Sonic 2 port to the Game Gear. Yes, I had that as a child. Yes, I'm still mad about it. If you had to convert one to the other, from a legitimately legendary 8-bit top-down action-adventure game to a monochrome handheld with the processing power of literally a watch, how would you go about doing it? Well, let's talk game design. The answer is... To understand all of this, you're going to need a little timeline as a contextual frame of reference. So pay attention. We're going to be working exclusively from Japan, and I don't have time in this video to explain to you the differences between the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES, and the Famicom Disk System, or the FDS. So go and check out an intelligent, smart, capable, charismatic retro gaming YouTuber if you would like that. Incidentally, applications are now open for any retro gaming YouTuber who would like to be directly linked in this reference slot, and a price list for sponsorship is available on request. The first Legend of Zelda game released in Japan on the 21st of February 1986. The direct sequel, Zelda 2, released on the 14th of January 1987. This Game & Watch multi-screen LCD handheld released in Japan at some point in August 1989. You only need to look at it in action for a few seconds to understand exactly which of the two Zelda games they took most key inspiration from. And spoilers, it wasn't the first one. Now all you can do in an LCD game is light up or turn off a handful of pre-made graphics on a monochrome display that is incredibly hard to film and even harder to play properly while you're trying to film it. So from a design standpoint, it actually makes perfect sense to adapt the gameplay of the second game rather than the first one. Zelda 2 is often referred to by journalists, reviewers, analysts, influencers, and people who claim to know what they're talking about as the black sheep of the Zelda family. For context, these are the same kinds of people who fall asleep muttering the phrase "Sonic had a rough transition to 3D" and describe the controls of anything released before 2003 as clunky. We're not going to get too heavily into Zelda 2 today, other than to show you the basics of the combat. They did away with the original game's top-down grid-based perspective, and instead we're in side-scrolling 2D, where you can jump, duck, and attack on a multitude of vertical levels. You can later unlock even more stuff to do, but like I said, we're not really getting into that today. Instead, let's get back to the Game & Watch multi-screen. Side note, what I like about this is the sticker on the box that states it was distributed by a company called Contemporary Games plc. I don't imagine that they are particularly contemporary anymore. On the plus side, at least I faithfully retained their details for future reference, because here I am referring to them in the future. Now, as with any game released before 1990, if you want to know what we're actually doing, you do usually need to read the manual. So we'll start there. Although before we do, here is this adorable little warning label that states, "Game & Watch is a precision instrument. Do not attempt to take it apart. Be especially careful of part in circle. Do not stick with sharp instrument or damage in any way. It can cause breakdown." I don't know about you, but I find that incredibly relatable. Please do not damage me in any way. It can cause breakdown. Anyway. In the manual we get the plot, because there is one, and we don't have room for a scrolling text screen like the original 8-bit title, which I might as well read to you for the sake of context. "The havoc caused by 8 fierce dragons is increasing day by day. These dragons have refused to live in peace with man and are fighting against him to rule the world. Now that your sweetheart, Princess Zelda, has been kidnapped by the evil dragons, you have resolved to destroy the dragons." What we can take from this is that when a bunch of dragons were causing unrest for all of humanity, Link couldn't care less. But then they came for his woman, and that was when he picked up his sword and decided to be a hero. Yes, this was made in the 80s, how could you tell? I did originally think I might relate if a dragon came after my partner, but honestly, if I threatened a dragon with a sword, she'd be justifiably mad at me and we'd probably adopt it instead. Love you. Casual sexism aside, the manual does actually outline for you how the game works. You stand on one level, moving back and forth to beat a goblin who fires arrows at you. Depending on the level you're in, you'll have a number of Stalfos enemies underneath you trying to stab your feet, and maybe also a ghost firing arrows somehow from behind you. You can either get out of the way or block these with your shield, and your goal in each room is to beat the goblin, who should have been a moblin, but the translators here were obsessed with the word sweetheart, so I don't expect them to have got this right either, and move on until you reach a dragon. Then comes the boss fight, and I swear I'm not just saying this because this is Zelda related and I'm terminally obsessed with Zelda things. This is genuinely good. The fireballs move down at predictable intervals from the top while the dragon swings its tail at you, and the dodging, attacking and overall gameplay that you engage in is very impressive for something that's little more than a series of 6 light switches. Then you get a piece of the Triforce for some reason, and do it all over again. There's also collectible items like a map, a weapon that is for some reason called the Tomahawk, and a Water of Life potion that resurrects you if you die and crucially puts you up to full health. I say crucially because when you are at full health, like in the games we're trying to replicate, you get a sword beam, which makes everything so much easier. From this point on, we're going to move from awkwardly filming the physical hardware I own, and instead look at this digitally recorded copy of the game that I obtained by methods I can't tell you about, because if I do, Nintendo will send a hit squad to my house. Looking at this, what you might realise is that as simple as it is, there is a deceptively deep amount of design at play which comes down to 3 main things: situational awareness, positioning, and reaction speed. With a combination of these, the game, even in its primitive state, can feel fluid, satisfying, and strangely engaging, even with the visual prowess of some permanent marker graffiti drawn on a window in a bus. Speaking of public transport, if you take situational awareness, positioning and reaction speed, do you know where else you might end up? Subway surfers, or really anything that uses that combination of dynamic hazard avoidance and player influence to positively build flow and momentum. Now, is this a faithful portable recreation of one of the most iconic and historically relevant video games of all time? No, definitely not. But is it better than the controversially different Zelda 2? Also no. But it's not as shallow as it could have been for something so primitive, and it's not as bad as that Sonic 2 Tiger handheld that we began the video with. More importantly than that though, I got to rescue my sweetheart, and obviously I'm going to show you that. So while I do, make sure you like this video if you liked this video, and subscribe for more videos like the video you liked, and I will see you the next time I'm thinking, hey, let's talk game design.